for every AFL club in 2024. We know, we've looked at every single statistic, every single thing like that. Not really, but we've
looked at the teams, we've looked at
the teams, looked at how they went throughout the end of last year towards this year, their pickups, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And have came up with a, pass mark for every single AFL team that they should be at least passing. This is like the C+. This is what you need to get to go through to your next year of school. Or a D. I'm really saying, because I got a couple of Ds and still went through the next year.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all you need, guys.
He graduated.
Yeah, he graduated with a couple of Ds in my report card. But there weren't any Fs, so that's all good. Pass is a pass. But anyway, this is what teams need to do to get a pass mark from me at this stage before the season starts to the end of the year. What they need to do to get their pass mark. So we'll start with Adelaide Crows. I think the fact that they were quote-unquote robbed of making the finals in 2023. I think that they should be making finals. I think they've got a lot of home games this year that they should not lose. We saw how good they were playing at home, that they shouldn't have any issues about winning at home. I think they've got 13 games at the Adelaide Oval this year, including Gather Round, the 2 showdowns.
Yeah.
I think the Crows, if they can win all 13 of those, they just need to win like 2 or 3 away, and they could potentially make top 4.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I think, worst case scenario, really, they should be making the top. If they miss the 8, that's a failed year.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think the Crows, with a very good forward line, probably one of the most potent forward lines in the comp, a pretty decent midfield and defence, I think that finals is a must for the Crows going into next year, going into 2024.
Yeah, mine is the top 6, and to win a final for them to be a pass mark. They should have... 100% they should have made the finals last season, of course, for that decision, but they need to win away. They will win, what you said, 13 home South Australian games. They'll win 12 of them, I reckon.
Yeah, you can already bank 12.
They'll bank 12.
Maybe they'll lose 1.
Yeah, they may lose 1. You never know who... Yeah, they may just lose 1. But they'll bank 11. They'll bank 12 wins. So they've got to win away. You think another pre-season into these players... their forward line is so good. It's a top 3, I think, in the comp.
You'd be up there.
Yeah. So I think that they'll make top 6 and they have to win a final.
Okay, that's fair enough. So basically saying they need to basically bank themselves an elimination home final.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and then they'll get semi-final easily.
Yeah, you'd think so. If they could win a final with the crowd that they have behind them, I think they would be very hard to beat.
Yeah.
So next up we get to Brisbane, the grand finalists of 2023. Well, I'm going to start and I'm going to say they made the grand final in 2023, were so close to winning it. I think they have to win it to be a pass mark. They took for so many years of making finals and making it to the prelim and then getting eliminated. They finally made the grand final. They finally had experience in a grand final. They didn't lose They didn't lose anyone in the off season. Well, anyone important. I mean, they lost Fullerton, but he wasn't playing.
No.
They need to win the premiership, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other... There's no... if they lose the grand final, it's not a failed year, but let's be honest. It's hard to say it's a failed year when you make the grand final, but considering they made it there, they've still got a very good list. They picked up Tom Doedee as well, who's going to flit into that defence, especially towards mid-year to end of the year. So I think it's just really good to add that string to their bow. I think premiership for the Lions is almost a must. Grand final at the very least.
Yeah, I'd have to say the same. Like they haven't lost much. They didn't lose much. They win every game at home at the Gabba, and they're starting to win away. They've got to try and fix that Melbourne MCG hoodoo, but
yeah, because I mean they're still pretty good at Marvel.
They're still
as well.
Yeah. So they've got to try and do that. But besides from that, there's not many flaws in their list. Maybe a bit. It's hard to say where they need a fix. Really, they've tried to fix up their defence with Doedee. Their forward line's really potent, and their midfield's pretty good as well. So
yeah, I mean, I think
their
defence has always been their question mark, but I think we proved last year with the likes of Jackson Payne. I think they definitely missed him in the grand final.
I think that
was very tough.
I think they need.
Even though I think Gardner played pretty well in the grand final, I still think that he would have. I think he could have maybe been the difference.
Yeah, so my pass marks a grand final. No grand final appearance.
Yep, that's fair enough. After that, we get to Carlton. Obviously, shock really to a lot of people, especially if you looked at mid-year. If you had a coma and you woke up before in the mid-year, and you woke up in the prelim final in Brisbane, and you heard that Carlton made it there, I don't think that anyone they would have believed you.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't have.
They had a huge run of form. I think they lost one game before the prelim final in between like 13th, 14th round, all the way to the end, because I think they won 10 in a row, including beating Port Adelaide and Collingwood in that time.
The only one they lost was the Giants in the last round.
Yeah, exactly.
Which didn't really matter
because
they're
already there. Exactly, and they couldn't be beaten out of fifth. So I think this year they have to back it up. They have to get back to the prelim final at the very least, because look, they've got the list. They I still think they lack a little bit more that small forward, which is why I don't think they're going to be. They're not exactly premiership contenders at this stage. We'll see how they go earlier in the season. But at this stage, I think a pass mark at the very least to get back to where they were in 2023. I think a prelim final. I'm expecting. I think I've put them in the top 4. We'll be doing more of a ladder predictor next week, so that's where we'll be looking more into that. But I think if Carlton can secure a top 4 spot, a prelim I think that's a pass mark for Carlton.
Yeah, mine's top 4 for them. Their problem is their defense their small forward line.
Jacob Wettering as well did actually get injured.
I did
in the pre-season. I think he should be fine for round 1. I think, but that's a pretty big loss.
It's just that if he doesn't, it's just very wary of their forward line. They never really figured it what their small forward line was supposed to be, and
even to the prelim, I mean, they were still changing players in that small forward.
I think Matt Elwey should have played that game in that. Late in the year.
Yeah, in the prelim.
Yeah,
I was surprised they did drop him too.
Yeah, I think that was very harsh on him. Their midfield's very strong, and they seem to want to play 2 ruckman this season with Pidnet and DeConing.
Yeah,
they're still trying to juggle if they can get them both in, and I think they need to. I think Pidnet's not really a forward, and DeConing can play forward, but I think it works better with Pidnet in the team as the number 1 ruckman and DeConing coming in. I've got them in top 4. They should be able to get to the prelim, and that's their pass mark, I think, for this season.
Yep. So the first 4 teams we've got pretty high pass marks for, and 3, and then we've got Collingwood. Now, obviously, Premiers last year were basically the best team for the whole year.
Yeah.
So, fittingly, they won the premiership. Very hard to say, but at the end of the day, they were the best team of the whole year. They kind of deserved to win the premiership. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. They have to go back-to-back. I think that's a pass mark. I think that's both of us.
I think we can 100%, yeah. Well, they didn't lose... They lost Ginnivan, but they brought in Schultz, so it kind of
counters. An upgrade.
So, it upgrades. It sort of counters it out. I think grand final will bust for them again. Yeah, I
mean, Daniel McStay being out, I think is going to be a bit of a loss, but
they've got all year to try and figure that out.
Yeah, they've got a whole year to figure it out. Ash Johnson, another year into him. Hopefully, he can improve. I think that it just has to be a back-to-back. I mean, they didn't have it's not like Geelong from 2022 to 23. Even though I think they needed to back it up. They don't have an ageing list like Geelong. They're still improving. They've still got young players coming through, as well as the older firm like Sidebottom and Pendlebury at their back. So I think it's just pretty simple, back-to-back for Collingwood. Yeah. All right. Next we get to Essendon. So finally we get to a team where we don't have a lot of expectations for, really. But I still think the fact that they went hard in the trade period, they went hard in the off-season, they picked up a couple of players in the draft. They were in the finals race for, 21 rounds, really? 22 rounds of the season? Until they fucked up late. I mean, I think that they need to make finals. I think they have to. I mean, they're playing for the now, but they also, they're recruiting like their trade period. They recruited, 3 or 4 players? Ben Mackay, Jade Gresham, and a couple of other... Dersma as well. Goldstein. All of them, maybe not so much Dersma, but, Dersma will improve as well. But, all of them really are for them now.
Yeah.
They did pick up Nate Caddy in the draft, and he looks like he's going to be a really good player for them. But another year into the likes of Parrish, Perkins, Harry Jones is back, and he looks like he's having a pretty good preseason. This team needs to make finals. And look, I know it's going to be... if they lose again in a final... it's been, over 7,000 days now since they won a final. And more than that since they won one without Kevin Sheedy. So, I think they have to make the finals. Now, I know that may be a bit harsh considering that, they didn't make it last year, but they were in there for so long. And the funny thing was, they were carried for a lot of the season up forward from Kyle Langford. And then Peter Wright finally came back from injury, and he played pretty well when he came back. But they still couldn't kick goals. They still couldn't find a way to kick goals. And they got demolished by Collingwood in the final round. Demolished even more by GWS the week before that.
Yeah.
And they need to make finals. I think that's a fair enough thing to say. I think they've got the list that should be playing in finals. And I think that there's really no excuse at this stage other than the fact that they haven't been able to make it. I think that's the only excuse they have. Oh, we haven't been able to make it, so why are you putting so much high pressure on them? They've been around the mark for a while now. They should be making it again, in my opinion. That's just one. Anyway, what do you think?
I think Passmarks top 10.
That you do realise that 9th and 10th isn't finals.
Yes, I know that.
Okay.
I'm not going to be that.
You're going to be that harsh.
I'm harsh on the players that they brought in. Goldstein, well, you might as well... He's going to play, 2 years at most? What's the point?
And they've also said as well that Sam Draper looks like a pretty good coach.
Yeah, Draper's the number one ruckman. He's been there for 5-6 years now. He's got that spot already. What's the point of bringing a Goldstein?
Yeah,
I don't get the point of that. You bring in Jay Gresham. I've watched him for the last 4 or 5 years. He does nothing on the field.
He's pretty good at hogging the ball.
Yeah, hogging the ball. So he's a selfish player, and what I've seen from pre-season is that if he wanted to be back in ripping form, he would actually perform in pre-season. Nothing I've seen out of anything from Essendon has been that he's lighting the house on fire. So that's not whatever you want to call it.
You got Ben Mackay as well.
Ben Mackay, who's to the most overrated defender this pre-season.
Yeah.
He's got so much pressure on him for someone who doesn't do much, who never did anything at North Melbourne.
Yeah.
And you bring in Xavier Dersma. He's a good player, but he could never lock in the spot at Port Adelaide.
So, I think as well that Essendon's wing roles haven't really been... I don't know about maybe they do need an extra runner. I don't know. But I still think that they could have improved a lot more in their defence. I think that's something they should have gone a lot harder on. I know they got Ben Mackay, but I still think...
He was the only one on the market that wanted to go to Essendon.
Yeah.
He was the only one in the entire market that wanted to go there. So they were like, oh, well, he desperately wants to come to us. We're going to pick him up.
They spent, I think, overs on him.
They spent way overs.
Yeah,
and
on a paycheck. So
it's like
you still think top 10, though?
I still think top 10. They need to get the top 10.
Yeah.
Because another year in a Jake Stringer who does nothing all year.
It's a big year for him.
Yeah.
If he doesn't improve and doesn't come... I don't know how these came back on pre-season, but if he doesn't come back in some ripping shape and then be fit enough to play round one, he's got to go.
Well, what we've been hearing from Brad Scott all pre-season is if you're not fit, you're not playing. Or he's a big stance on...
professionalism.
And the first couple... The big pre-season is going to be big for the rest of them. And top 10, I think they need to make.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that I think you went harder on Essendon, but you've picked them to go top 10 instead of the top 8.
Yeah, well, I just don't think that list is top 8 material.
Okay. Alright, next we get to Fremantle. Now, last year they were kind of the question mark. They made it in 2022, they made it to 6th spot. They had a home final and a home win. They came into 2023 with, they were kind of a question mark. No one really knew if they were going to finish in the top 8 or if they were going to finish just outside the 8. They had a terrible year.
Yes.
You can't really underestimate that. They had a terrible year. They did have a couple of injuries, but at the end of the day, shocking year. And despite maybe a couple of players improving, it was a very, very bad year for the Dockers.
Yeah.
Now they come into this year. Their off-season was borderline dreadful. They picked up no one except for Jeremy Sharp in the delisted free agency. They lost one of the best small forwards in the comp for essentially a bag of chips and some Tim Tams in Lockie Schultz. And now we're supposed to expect that they're going to do something this year. Now, I know there are a lot of people saying that they are banking up a lot to try and go for Logan McDonald in the off-season next year because he has out of contract. I don't know about that. We will have to wait and see on that front. But do Fremantle supporters deserve to have to wait another year for maybe some success?
Yeah.
Another year. I think their pass mark is to finish above the bottom 4 because I think their list is I don't know if there's much to look at there. Their defence obviously is their best by a country mile. Caleb Sarong and Brayshaw, good in the midfield. They're playing Hayden Young through there, it looks like, which I think is a good change. He's a good left footer. But they're still talking about Nat Fyfe playing through the midfield. They're saying, oh, he's having a great pre-season, he's been playing through the midfield. This guy should not be in their midfield right now. If they're building for the future, I'm sorry, he could play through there at times, but this guy needs to play forward for them because I think that's their only chance they're going to get goals. Because Tabner is their other option. Who else have they got up there? They've got Jai Amos, and that's kind of about it, like on tall side. I think a hybrid forward like Nat Fyfe, towards the end of his career, I think is a really good idea, who can just play spurts through the midfield. That's just me. I think that now Frederick's going to have so much pressure on him as a small forward because Lockie Schultz is gone. Michael Walters is ageing, so I don't know how good a year he's going to have. That's why I think a pass mark is just over fourth. But at the end of the day, I think they had a woeful off-season, probably one of the worst out of any team. And because they obviously didn't have enough draft picks because they used all of them to get Luke Jackson in the year before.
Yeah.
So I still think they've got to finish above the bottom four. I think it's a pass mark for me. But I think I can't expect them finishing much higher than that, to be honest, either.
Yeah, I think it's a huge season for Freo. They lost their one attribute that they were really good at home.
Yeah, well, they got beaten a lot.
They lost. I think they probably lost more than.
I think they lost at least half. Yeah.
Yeah, they just couldn't win at home, and the experiment of Jackson and Sean Darcy didn't really work.
Looks like they're going to try again.
But they're going to have to. Sean Darcy's signed and Jackson's signed for forever.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's another year where it's the unknown for Freo, but they've lost more players that last over the trade period. So it's hard to say where they're going to finish. I've got them avoiding the bottom four. Sorry.
I think you've said to me like 9th to 13th is a pass mark.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I think they need to be able to win some games at home.
They need to win more games at home than they lose.
They need, and they need to be able to find ways to goal because they've always been a team that can't score. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it was under Ross Lyon or Justin Longmuir, they can't score.
I don't think in their history they've been a high scoring team.
Yeah. Yeah, they just need to find other avenues to goal.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, like their defense has always been elite. Yeah, and that's not going to be their problem. They'll be able to stop teams, but can they put scoreboard pressure on them, on others? So
we've seen in the last few years as well that a team that scores very heavily are very hard to a team that can score heavily is like one of the more bigger attributes at the moment. I don't think a defensive team's won a premiership in a very long time. To be honest, I can't think of a team that's just like defensive orientated has like won a premiership in a very long time.
No,
probably since Sydney in 2012. Really, they were a very defensive orientated team, or if you think about it. But like the Hawks in that era, the Eagles winning that premiership, even the Bulldogs to an extent were much of a I'm trying to think of recently as well, Geelong as well. They weren't really a hugely defensive team. They were good on both ends. Yeah. So, I think that, Freo need to seriously look at what they're doing going into, early this year. And they need to win more games at home than they lose. I guess at a very minimum at this point. So now we get to Geelong. 2022 premiers fell off the face of the earth in 2023. A lot of injuries had to do with that. But I think finals, they need to get back there. They'll get their players back as long as they don't get injured again. They've still got a very old list, so they've still got their list for the now. Yeah. Yes, they went to the draft a little bit this year. In 2023, they went to the draft a little bit, but they've still got a list for the now. They don't have a list for the future yet. They don't look like they're building for it, so they have to be in the now. Yeah. So they have to be making finals. Now, they've got a pretty good run of games that's down in Geelong this year because of the new development. I think they've got 9 games down in Geelong this year. So I think they've got one against the Giants, and the Giants have a pretty good run there. But, I mean, you could bank at least 8 of those wins. At least. Yeah. And I think they've got some pretty low teams down there too. So, if you're banking 8 wins down there, and then, getting a couple of teams away, they should be getting at least, 12, 13 wins, I'm saying. So, they should be looking to make at least the bottom part of the 8, in my opinion. I don't think they're a top 4 team anymore. I think they're too old now, and I don't think that they can rely on Jeremy Cameron to get their goals. And I don't know how much Tom Hawkins has got left in him, to be honest. Ollie Henry had a good year when he kicked 40 plus goals, which shocked me when I found that out. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't.
He kicked 40 plus goals in 2023.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocked me when I saw that. But yeah, I think that finals is almost a must for the Cats, and especially for their fans as well. They've never really experienced missing the eight 2 years in a row, especially this younger generation of supporters. So yeah, I think top eight's basically my pass mark for the Cats.
Yeah, I've got the same. I think they just... I don't know if the move for Thomas Jordan in the midfield's a good thing, but it might help them, might not. But it's going to be interesting what happens with that. They're too old to challenge for top four. Yeah, I think top eight's pass mark for them. Their fans expect finals, and that's their pass mark. So you never know. When they get to finals, they can always do a bit of damage. So
yeah, they do have a finals bred team.
Yeah.
So if they can get there, maybe they can put some damage on. But yeah, like you said, yeah, I think that they're a bit too old now. I just can't see them making top four.
No,
that's just I think it's fair enough. Next, we get to the Gold Coast Suns, yet to make a final series in their lifespan since 2011. It is now 2024. They do have Damien Hardwick coming to the helm. They didn't do much in the off-season, but the main point was that they kept their players, like in the draft period in the off-season, and in the draft they obviously picked up a lot of academy players. At this point in time, with their list, they've got a very well-rounded list for a team that's never made finals. I think they have to make it. I think that's another pass mark for Gold Coast. I mean, not that really there'd be a lot of Gold Coast fans around. I don't know. I mean, I think they posted like they had 30,000 members. I mean, that's pretty decent for the Gold Coast. But they need to. I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't be making finals. They've got a very good midfield. One of the best defences in the comp, really. They would be one of the best defensive teams in the comp who were outside the top 8 last year. I think it's a fair thing to say. Have a very good midfield and a decent forward line led by Ben King. They need to be making finals because they can't be taken seriously as an AFL club if they don't make finals. Very soon. They still have never made it, and there's been 13, 14 years since they were inaugurated into the AFL. So I think finals.
Yeah, I've got to say they have to make finals. Their list is built for finals, I believe, with their midfield, their defense. Another pre-season into that forward line, Ben King coming back from that serious ACL injury, giving him the full pre-season, good for him. Their small forward line needs to be able to find a way.
Yeah, Nick Holman is kind of their one wood, really.
Yeah, and they can't just rely on Ben King to do it. They need Kaz Bolt to fire, and
we'll see how Jed Walter goes
as
well.
And their academy players, they can't also expect all these academy players to come in and just dominate. Yeah. They can't expect that, and if they do, they will struggle.
Well, that's just, I mean, if they do fight, that's just a blessing in disguise. That's just a blessing. I mean, they need to be banking on Kaz Bolt kicking 30 plus goals.
40.
All right. Well, I'm thinking logically, not in the dream. Logically, they need him to kick at least a goal and a half a game. They need their small forwards to combine for 40 goals. I think that's fair enough. And their midfielders need to start scoring too. Matt Rowe's never been really known as a goal scorer. Yeah. Even Noah Anderson, not the massive goal scorer. Sam Flanders, hopefully he scores very well this year. This is an AFL fantasy. But I think that's someone as well. That's something where they need to find some goals from. I think that's fair enough to say. After that, we get to the pretty big surprise packet of 2023, which was the GWS Giants. No one really expected to see them make the finals, but not only did they make finals, but they took Australia's heart as well by becoming Australia's team, making it all the way to the prelim and 1 point away from a grand final. Don't think anyone would have expected that going into the 2023 to start.
Well, most people thought they were in the bottom 6.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was... Look, to be honest, looking at their list, they didn't really have a lot screaming out to say that they were going to make the top 4. Well, be the last 4 teams in the end of the season. I think that's a fair enough thing to say. I think a pass mark for them is to make the semi-final. I think they can be okay to not make a prelim. That's just me, because I think that a lot of teams are going past them to an extent, because they did really well like the Gold Coast to retain players. I just don't know if the Gold Coast, if the GWS can back it up again. That may be a little bit harsh on my end. I think there's a lot of teams like Sydney who had a down year, Geelong who had a down year, Gold Coast who are coming now. There are a lot of clubs fighting for those last couple of spots in the 8. So I think a semi-final is a pass for them if they can make low. They can make just like 6th, 7th, 8th. I think that'd be a pass mark and then win a final. I think that'd be a really good pass. I think that'd be a pass for a year for the GWS, and then go really hard in the next couple of off seasons with trades and stuff to build that team into a team that can push for a premiership. I think Adam Kingsley's coaching them very well. He's finally got them building a brand of footy that's actually going to compete in finals as well.
Yeah,
they're not just this fairy team that fucking do absolutely nothing to put any pressure on, but will be one of the most skillful teams like we saw with Leon Cameron when they made it in 2018. Like when they made the grand final in 2019. Sorry, 2018. Yeah, when they made it, no one really expected them to beat Richmond because they weren't a team built for a grand final. Because if you think about it back then. But I think that Adam Kingsley is building something with them. He's finally got this team running two ways. Tom Green's going to have a massive year. Toby Green's finally been picked as captain, is actually playing well as captain as well. So I think semi-finals fair enough for the goal for GWS.
Yeah, I've got them just making the 8. I think that they'll make the 8. You could say, when Collingwood last season they were going to fall off. I think they will fall off a bit. I think they actually will. Just with that list, that it is young still in a way. That besides their midfield, they've got Jesse Hogan and Toby Green up front. They're still very inexperienced. Sam Taylor's very young in their defense, who is very, very good as a leader, but he is still young. So
I think one of the things about the Giants is, if you think about, you think of their top echelon of players in each position. You got Tom Green, Josh Kelly. Their midfield's very stacked and they've all been proven.
Yeah.
In defence, they've got Jack Buckley and Sam Taylor. They've been proven defenders. Even Connor Lydon. Their forward line: Hogan, Toby Green, maybe Bedford, but even then, Bedford, he's had a good year. Can he continue that? They don't have the most They haven't had the most proven 22 just yet. They had a hot run of form. You got to remember that towards the end of the year.
And that's what helps is momentum. Momentum is always another element to
a team pushing to deep finals.
Yeah.
So I think they will fall off a bit. So you're saying a pass?
I think pass marks top eight because no one expected them to do what they did.
Yeah.
And I just think that saying they have to make the prelim like they did last season, is just too much of a stretch. I think if they do it, amazing.
They've passed all expectations again.
They'll pass expectations again, but I just don't think they will. And I think just making the 8's just a stepping stone for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yep. All right, next we get to Hawthorn. So Hawthorn, start of last year, everyone thought, this team's tanking. Well, not everyone. I think Damien Barrett was the leader of that one. But, everyone was thinking this team's going to finish bottom.
Yeah.
And after round 2, when the Swans smashed them, they were like, oh, God, this team's going to finish bottom by a long way. But towards the middle to end of the year, Sam Mitchell kind of showed what he was actually building. Building a very young side to compete in the future. And they, jumped West Coast to North Melbourne, arguably as a younger side. Well, I think it's a younger side.
Yeah.
They picked up very well in the off-season. Chol, Ginnivan, and D'Ambrosio, a couple more as well. The question mark is obviously, can they build this year or is it a couple more years from now? I have them for a pass mark between 11th and 15th. So basically just outside the bottom 4. I think with the games that they had in this year, in 2023, that they was proving some very good signs, throughout the end of the year. I mean, they beat Collingwood for Christ's sakes as well. They look like they'll get Jaff back this year. He's very on and off. I think he's a massive inclusion. Their recruits that they're picking up is going to be big as well. I think Mabior Chol and Mitch Lewis combining is going to be really good with their small forwards in Ginnivan. Nick Watson as well, who got picked up in the draft. Yeah. Carl Amon looks like he's been moving to half-back. I think that's a great decision. He's always a good ball user. Hopefully he gets that defensive status in AFL Fantasy very quickly. Anyway, I think he's going to have a big year, Carl Amon. But for me, I think 11th to 15th is a pass mark. I think finishing above the bottom 4 is a pass. I think if they finish back in the bottom 4, I think it's very disappointing. Because I think that they are better than a lot of teams that are around them. Like, I don't know exactly. I'll have to look at my ladder predictor again. I'll look at it later when we do that next week as well. But I think they're better than Fremantle. I think they're better than the likes of even Essendon to an extent. That's maybe big, but I think that's probably fair enough. So I think they can finish above them too. And if I'm putting them in the bottom 4 with North Melbourne and West Coast, I think that they should be finishing above the bottom 4.
Yeah, I've got them finishing above the bottom 4. They've got to avoid the bottom 4. It's yes, they are still young, but they've got the nice experienced players in Luke Bruce, Gunston coming into that team that can help them, and Sicily, who is a good leader when he's not getting suspended.
That's what I was about to say.
It's like, they need to avoid the bottom 4, and Sicily needs to play every game. Yeah. Without getting... If he gets injured, there's a different story. He can't get suspended in that team.
I think as well, something they're building similar to how Sydney kind of did it, those few years around COVID, 2019, 21, how they were building younger players, but they were getting games experience into them. Yeah. So I think that the likes of like having a young team, but these guys are going to be, 50 gamers by the time they're 22. Yeah. Not by the time they're 26 or whatever. These guys are getting games into them, like Newcomb and that sort of stuff, who are like one of the better midfielders in the comp, and he's not very old. He's not, very experienced. Will Day as well is another example. So, I think that, like you said, above the bottom 4, pretty much a must for them. I think they're better than a lot of teams around them who finish around them in the end of the year. So I think that's fair enough. Next we get to North Melbourne. Look,
avoid the wooden spoon, please.
I think that's fair enough. I think that's the only pass mark, and I don't really see it. I don't know if they can do it.
I don't know.
There was so much games experience, which, they had to, but they picked up Dylan Stevens, they picked up Zach Fisher. Their defence is very questionable. On tall defenders. They picked up Toby Pink from Glenelg down in the Sandful, who looks like he's just basically walking into an AFL 23 round 1. I think they get Charlie Comben back, who was like a big prospect for them up forward. He looks like he's going to be moving into defence. Towards the end of the year, though, who was their... obviously Griffin Logue would be their key defender, but he's out for the majority of the year with the ACL he did late in the year. So, I think Callan Dawson was one of them, who was like a potential prospect, but he was nearly delisted at the end of the year. So, their defence is really questionable. Their midfield is their best line, and then Nick Larkey up forward is their only option. Yeah. So, I think above 18 is really the only option.
They just got to avoid the wooden spoon, and that's it might seem like a stupid pass mark, but they have to. They've been on the bottom 2 the fucking, last 4 years? Yeah. They just have to. Yeah. And they've got to be stop asking for handouts. Yeah, and they can't get them another... Yeah, that's another thing they need to do, is not ask for another handout. Oh, but we finished bottom again. Well, how about you fucking build something instead of just bringing all these young kids in, fucking doing nothing to them, and then them being useless. Exactly, yeah. Anyway, let's move on to Melbourne. Interesting team. Obviously, they've still not been able to find their key forward for the past few years. Ben Brown dropped off last year, so they were basically playing Joel Smith as their key forward. Obviously, he won't be in round 1. No. It's not. Anyway, Harrison Petty, I think, will be back for round 1 if he's in. I think he's their best key forward at this stage. I've given them a pass mark of winning a final. Obviously, the last 2 years they've made the top 4, but then lost in straight sets. Brody Grundy is obviously left to the Swans. I think they've finally just realised, obviously, I think that's a wasted year for them in their ruck position, half a year. They wasted a lot of fucking time putting Brody Grundy trying to get him forward. I think that was stupid. That was a waste of time. I think from the beginning, most people saw it as like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. He's not a forward. Yeah. He's never been a forward. What are you doing trying to put him in there? I think winner final is a pass mark for Melbourne. I know that may seem a bit easy on them for some people, but I don't actually think they have a list that competes for grand final, to be honest. I know they have a very good defence, but their midfield, other than it's Petrarca and Oliver, Oliver's and Viney. Yeah. Oliver, who knows where he's going to be. Yeah. Their second string midfielders are very unproven at this stage. They will get a chance this year, so we'll see how they go. And their forward line, who the hell knows who lines up with Bailey Fritsch? That's basically Bailey Fritsch, and really, I know people will say Pickett, but how fucking inconsistent has he been? Well, they're only saying he could be the next second string in the midfield. But he doesn't work hard enough to be a midfielder. Yeah. I'm sorry, but he doesn't. He doesn't do the two-way running. He's not... if you think about it, he should be one of the best pressure forwards in the game. And there are many times, I bet you look at the statistics right now, he's not
getting, he's not one of the highest tacklers at Melbourne, which is not good enough as a small forward. He should be one of the highest tacklers. So
especially with the fact that they don't have very tall forwards.
Yeah, they should be bringing the ball around.
Yeah,
and he should be the one with full pressure. So I honestly don't think they've got a team to build towards a premiership. Yeah. At this stage, I think they need a key forward. They need a more midfield depth, which they lost as well by losing not only James Jordan but James Harms as well. So they picked up Jack Billings. What did they do? Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But anyway,
it's a funny one. But
yeah, I don't think that they're a team competing for a grand final at this stage. Yes, their defense is one of the best, but nothing else really screams out to me. So I think a final is a pass mark with the list that they've got at the moment.
I think a pass mark's a top 4 prelim. I think that's their pass mark. I don't think they'll get that, but they need to get to the prelim. Okay. But with that list, they need to be in the last 4 teams in the season, but they won't be because that forward line is bottom 5 in the league.
They've wasted 2 years of not picking anyone up. I don't know how their money situation is, but
surely if they have enough money to grab Brody Grundy, I guess I know that Colin would be probably paying that money.
Well, that's it. They would have some money there.
Yeah, so I don't know. They probably chucked it all at Petrarca, Oliver, Gawn, and probably May and Lever. But that list, that forward line's pathetic. That's a bottom 5 forward line in my opinion in the league. Yeah, that forward line. Their midfield is up there in the top. I wouldn't say it's top 5 easily, but I would say top 7 or 8. They'd be top in
Yeah, because they're very top heavy. Obviously, Oliver, Petrarca, Viney is probably just a little bit under them. Yeah, but then it just drops off.
Yeah, and then there's nothing there. Then with their defense, they got May, Lever. They don't. If one of them goes down, you can't say, oh well, they can chuck Petty back. They don't have another forward. Yeah. So it drops off. Their pass mark's top 4 prelim, but they're not going to get that because their depth is crap. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see how Melbourne go. I think there'll be times where they may struggle. I think that, there's definitely a lot of question marks about Melbourne going into next year. Next, we get up to Port Adelaide. Now, I'm going to go quickly because this is your team. I've got a pass mark for Port making the prelim. Now, that may seem a bit high, but they finished top 4 in 2023. They did fall off towards the end of the year, but this team has a very good lineup. They picked up a lot of good players in the off season. They've finally picked up a second defender, so Aliir can play a little bit more off, which is his best position. Him playing as a key defender is not his best position, in my opinion. No. Zach Butters, another year with him and Rosie finally becoming captain. I think that's a good decision, get him in young. We'll see how he goes. Ollie Wines needs to improve, and I think he's a big one to try and get them to that prelim. But I think at the end of the day, especially to keep Ken Hinkley's job, they need to at least make the prelim. That's my pass mark for Port. I probably think they just need to win a final.
You think Ken Hinkley's?
I think it doesn't matter really what. The only reason Ken Hinkley will lose his job is if he doesn't make finals, in my opinion, next year. David Koch he's not harsh enough to sack him. I think to win a final will keep his job, and I think that's what Port will do. I don't know. The one problem Port Adelaide have, I think, is their wing at the moment.
Yeah, because they lost Dozmer. I don't know.
If that's I don't know if it was really the smartest move to give Essendon that, but they decided to do it because it will take Brennan fracture, which I don't think is a good move either. But Port Adelaide have decided that, so they have to live with it.
Wouldn't you think, 3 or 4 years ago when they lost Dougal Howard? Imagine if they had a key.
Yeah, I always keep thinking that every year. I think if we kept Dougal Howard, Port Adelaide would be a different team, but
not like he's lighting it up and saying.
But no, he's a big body defender, yeah. And I heard this in the on TV earlier last week or something like that they're trialling Tom Cleary, the wingman.
Oh, I heard that.
I thought, what are Port Adelaide doing? He's never been more than a defender. I just think that's just.
I didn't even know he had a tank to run or.
I don't know. I think it's more that they think that they want to keep him on the list for some reason. That if we lose 3 or 4 big tall defenders, that he can slip somewhere else. Yeah. So I just don't think that. I think that's stupid. I think Port Adelaide some of the it's hard to predict where Port Adelaide will finish, but they need to win a final. They went out straight sets last season. They haven't been able to get that success, and that's what the Port fans want is success.
Well, it's been 20 years now since they won a premiership.
Exactly.
And, 17 years since they made a grand final. So I think it's been a long time coming, and they need to shoot high this year, or else maybe it would have been maybe it's another wasted year if they don't make the prelim or they don't win a final, because Ken Inkley again has been able to get them through the home and away season a lot of times, but he hasn't been able to take them further than that.
Yeah.
And we saw Chris Fagan do it this year in 2023. We saw him finally get there and prove to the doubters that he can make a grand final, and almost won it. I mean, arguably, we're not going to get into that for Collingwood, but anyway, I still think Collingwood deserved it. Anyway, next we get to Richmond. Very, very interesting. This is hard because they did lose a lot of experience in Jack Rewald and Trent Cotchin. They've still got a lot on their list. And if you think about their last off-season, they picked up Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper because they were planning to push to the 8. They thought they had the list to keep on going.
But they didn't, yeah.
And they didn't because they just didn't have that game plan. Obviously, Damien Hardwick left halfway through the year. I think a pass mark for Richmond, this may seem a bit high, but this is a pass mark for me, I think, between 9th and 12th. So the bottom end, just out the 8. I think that's a pass mark for Richmond because they still have a pretty experienced list.
Yeah.
Their defence has got quite a lot of experience. Their midfield, Dustin Martin is still there. They've got a pretty good young group of midfielders, Taranto, Hopper, Graham as well. Their forward line's their question mark. They picked up Jacob Kaczynski, but I still think that this team should be competing to almost make the finals. I think that this team should not be making I think they will make the bottom 4, by the way. I don't think they're going to have a good year, Richmond. But they should be aiming for higher. But anyway, what do you think about Richmond?
So I think Richmond, they need to avoid the bottom 4. I think that their pass marks 10 to 14. I think that, like you said, they've got the list. They've still got Dustin Martin still firing in a way. Not as good as he was, but he still is pretty good. They need to play Shea Bolton in there full time in the midfield.
Yeah,
I think that needs to be the one thing that they do.
Yeah.
And it could be a big season for Richmond, but I just don't know if bringing in Kaczynski is the way to go. Somehow they need to get Tom Lynch on the field. And
he looks like he's done a pretty good pre-season so far, so I think that does make a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big year for Richmond because no one really thinks they're going to do anything. So it's going to be interesting for them, but I think 10 to 14 is a pass mark for them.
Yep, I think that's kind of where everyone's thinking Richmond at the moment. I don't know. I don't think anyone's really expecting them to make finals, but I think that their pass marks around that, just outside the 8.
Yeah.
Next, we get to St Kilda. Bit of a surprise packet. Obviously, had a really big fall off at the end of the year, but banked enough wins earlier in the season to make the finals. I've got them as finals to be a pass mark. I know, again, that may be a bit harsh on a team like that. I don't know if they will make the finals. I don't think they will. But I think that the fact that they did make it, Ross Lyon has a coaching record of really making finals pretty much every year. Even at Fremantle, there was a couple of years where he missed out and then he just left the job. Well, got sacked, whatever. And obviously when he was at St Kilda, he got them to finals quite a lot and to a couple of grand finals. So I think that finals, obviously having a really good defensive game plan is, what a one would for St Kilda under Ross Lyon. Do they find their forward structure? I don't know. Who knows how Tim Membry's head's going, if he's going to be playing. Max King, obviously. When he did come back, he was able to score a lot, but St Kilda's game plan turned from being unpredictable up forward to the most predictable forward entry team in the comp.
Yeah.
Just kicking on his head. But that's what St Kilda have done for years, though.
Yeah.
We've always said that. So I think finals has to be a pass mark because they were able to do it last year, and, I think that they've got the defensive attributes to back up a good year again. The question mark is, can they, improve their forward line to score more goals and but I don't see them challenging, but if they do improve their forward line, the defence will follow with it. So, I think that if they could have a good year up forward, maybe they could, get in the top 6 like they were able to. But, again, they lost to GWS in the first final at home. So, I don't know. St Kilda are kind of a question mark for me where they're going to be, but
Yeah.
I think a pass mark for me for them is to be in the finals.
Yeah, I think they shot too early last season to make the finals. I think they were too early. So my pass marks is 9 to 13. I just think they were too early. They were kind of making up the numbers, even though they did have a home final. They need to stop relying on Max King, and like you said, they were so predictable once he came back.
Yeah.
They were very. Their midfield is very good, but they need to get some more depth into it. They bringing in Liam Henry
Paddy Dow as well.
and Paddy Dow will help that, and pretty much they're saying Jack Sinclair will play midfield, and
Good for fantasy, by the way.
yeah, and their defense has always been good, and it will always be good once while Ross Lyon is there. So I think they should be able to, 9 to 13 is a pass mark for them.
Yeah. Okay. Next we get to Sydney. Now I'll let you go first. I know I've been going first all day, but I think you go first because I'm the Swan supporter here.
Yeah, I think prelim. I think that's a pass mark. With all their ins that they've brought in, I think they're going for the now, and the only thing they need to sort is how their forward line's going to structure up, and that's the only thing they need to do. And if they can sort that out, top 4 prelims easy for them.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much fair enough. I think, like you said, Sydney, I think they have to make at least the prelim because, like you said, their list that they're building. They've now got a ruckman. They really have not a competent ruckman. Well, not a competent one, but I know Tom Hickey's had a couple of good years, but when we won our premiership in 2012, we had a big bustling ruckman in Shane Mumford, and then we had Mike Pike as well. They're both big guys. Tom Hickey's a lot more of a aerobic ruckman. So is the ones we've had in the past, even like Kirk Tippett. Fucking Kirk Tippett. Even Callum Sinclair, he was never really a ruckman. But we finally have that ruckman who's, a big guy who can take control. And he's also, and the good thing about Brodie Grundy is he's can also play as like a midfielder. He's that aerobic.
Well, and now a forward.
Oh, and a forward as well. He can go up forward and be key up. Anyway, I think the Hayden McLean as well is going to be good because he's a really good second ruck. Taylor Adams, I think, is going to be big. They're saying that James Jordan is having a massive pre-season. Obviously, they're saying that about everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway. But I mean, they are saying he's having a pretty good pre-season. They're showing some good clips of him. Errol Gordon's going to have another year into him. He already won the 2K time trial. So that's good to see. Sydney, I think there's still a little bit of a question mark on their defence, just a little bit. We'll see how Joel Hamling goes. I think that is a good recruit as well because that does give Dane Rampy a chance to play play on the third tall forward. I think he always struggled a little bit when he was playing on that second tall. So I think that's very good. And Lewis Melican, if he does come in, he did prove himself pretty well in those last couple of rounds towards that first... Sorry, he proved himself pretty well in that first final, playing on... I think he played on Charlie Kerner to an extent. I think he played pretty well. So that's also another talking point. But I think, like you said, the three-pronged forward line, I think, can work for Sydney because I do think that they're 3 very different forwards. I think the Logan McDonald's more of the aerobic one. I think Joel Amati is that one who can play that key full forward. I think that McLean can play between the wings as well because I think that he's a good contested mark. Logan McDonald's that aerobic forward, he was obviously the Buddy apprentice. Not to say that he's Buddy Franklin, but he was the apprentice to Buddy Franklin. Yeah. He's got that movement. And then Amati's that key in the forward. So I think Sydney do have the list. Look, it may be a little bit low. I mean, maybe Sydney should be competing for the grand final. I don't know. Maybe that's a bit much to say. I'm trying not to be too biased, obviously, but I do think that they have to make the prelim at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get to West Coast. I think this is a pretty simple one. They have to avoid the spoon.
Yeah, they do. They can't go 2 years in a row. As a big club, 2 wooden spoons in a row, they can't do it.
And look, obviously we mentioned earlier in the episode, this has gone quite a long time, I'm sorry guys, but anyway, be happy that you get an extra long episode on the day off today. But yeah, I think that they have to not finish bottom. That's pretty much a must for West Coast. Yeah. Yes, they picked up Harley Reid, they picked up a couple of good players in the trade period. So I think that I think they've got a better list than North Melbourne. I think that may be a fair thing to say. I think they've got... I think it's good to see that a lot of their players that could have gone decided to stay. For me, I think that that's their pass mark, and I think they should be finishing above North Melbourne. That's me.
Yeah, I'd have to say the same. They just need to avoid the spoon. They can win. They've always been good at winning games in Perth, and they just need to win 3 or 4 games, and they'll avoid the spoon.
Oh yeah, so, I don't think North Melbourne have got much more than 2 wins in them, to be honest.
So yeah, that's what they have to do. They have to win 4 games, and I think they avoid the spoon. So I just think that they just need that stepping stone. Just they don't want to go 2 years in a row as the bottom team.
Yeah, I think that's a big call. A very good call as well. Finally, we get to the Bulldogs. Well, I mean, I think last year I said that their pass mark was the top 4, and they didn't make the finals. And I still stand by that. I think that they had the list that should be making the top 4. But again, they've aged another year. They still have so many midfielders that they just don't know where to put them. And they just don't seem to know how to sort it out. They've been playing Jack McRae off half forward for a lot of the year, which just didn't work, in my opinion. Caleb Daniel, they kept on chucking in the midfield, which, may be a good idea, but then eventually they just chucked him at small forward, half forward role, and he couldn't do anything. I don't know why they moved him from half back. The reason why they put him there was because of his good ball use, and they just said, we'll put him at half forwards to chuck him somewhere.
Yeah.
Bontempelli obviously had a massive year. He was really good. Liberatore had a pretty good year. A very good year. Tim English had a massive year. He'll back that up again, I would assume. I think finals is a pass for the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Do they make it? I don't know, because, I think we say that every year. Their forward line, Hugo Hagen, I think, could have a massive year. So is Aaron Norton. But again, can they, combine for 60-plus goals, 70-plus goals? I think if they make the final... I think they could... If those guys both fire, kick 40-plus goals, get 80, 90-plus goals in a season, they could be competing for high elimination final to early top 4. But they've just never been able to prove it. And Rory Lobb, pretty useless recruit, in my opinion, so far. He's too busy working on peroxide hair than fucking playing the game. Anyway, I think his best part of his career was when he was playing at the Giants, to be honest. Anyway, I think that, pass mark for Western Bulldogs is top 8.
Yeah, I think I have to say the same. Like, they've got the list to make the finals. Their team is full of superstar midfielders. They've just got too many of them. They play a player like McRae who averaged, he had a streak of over 30 disposals, the most ever. Yeah. And they decided to throw that guy at half forward, where half forward is the ghost town position. Yeah. It's so easy to lose yourself as a player.
Especially if you don't know the role.
Yeah, exactly.
If you think of GWS with Toby Bedford and Brent Daniels, they were playing the role brilliantly. Yeah. But Jack McRae never played his whole career as an inside midfielder.
And he's never played the role as a half forward, which is a complete... It's probably... Some people say it's the hardest position to play because it's very hard to do it. Yeah.
It definitely is. Yeah. And there'd be a lot of days where you just have a quiet one and you just don't know what to do.
You just don't put someone who's always been a ball magnet, who's always got the ball, to put him in a position that is very hard to play, that you don't get the ball very often. Yeah. If you don't really know how to play that position, and he just lost all his confidence. Yeah. And Luke Beveridge doesn't know what his best team is, as we've seen. He changes it every week. Yeah. And the team's a finals team. But because he changes it every week, the players don't seem to rely on, am I actually going to play this week? Yeah. So they
never work into learning the role that they have, because there's always in their back thought, I would imagine, that am I even going to play this week, or am I going to be back in the VFL?
Yeah. So their top 8 has to be their pass mark, and that list should make it. Yeah. But who knows?
We'll see what happens in the first couple of rounds, I guess. That's basically all the pass marks that we're looking for very early on, just before the season's, a month or two before the season starts, guys. Make sure to let us know down below what you think about the pass marks for each team going into 2024. If you think we're correct, if we're wrong, let us know.